Mike
from
O'Connor.
Mike O'Connor, I'm sorry.
I work for Representative Goodwin. Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it, Mike O'Connor. Okay, so welcome everyone. We have a number of items to talk about. The first thing we'll be talking about is constitutional amendments. Mike O'Connor from Vicki Goodwin's office will be giving us a brief overview, and we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for that. If anyone has very 30-second comments about any particular constitutional amendment, we can have some back and forth on that, but we need to be short on that. Then we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to talk about Prop A, 10 to 15 minutes to talk about Prop B, about 10 minutes to talk about the I-35 expansion, and then we'll have a few minutes for other agenda items. We'll be talking about potentially sponsoring a Texas Campaign for the Environment event. And then we also elect Jessica Cohen. She's handling the, our secretary is handling the ballots, and those ballots should go out at 1 p.m., but will be available after the meeting to help with issues there. So with that, I will, we have a lot going on, so I will hand it over to Mike O'Connor to give us a brief overview of the constitutional amendments. Oh, and also I have a Google Drive that I will post to the chat again that has all the documents that people have shared with me about this meeting. So if anyone wants that, that's there. And with it, take it away, Mike. And if you have anything you want to share, I can give you, you can send to me, or I can give you viewing permissions as well for us to let you present.
Yeah.
Okay, me now.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks everybody for having us out. I'm Mike O'Connor. I'm the legislative director for Representative Goodwin, and been told that you wanted an overview of the constitutional amendments. I also have heard loud and clear that you guys have a lot to cover today, so I'll go through these pretty fast. And if you want to interrupt me or ask a question, just feel free. Since the founding of the Texas Constitution in 1876, there have been 687 amendments that have gone before the voters, and 507 of those have been approved. So by and large, once they make it to the ballot, they're often approved, and that's just sort of something to think about for what it's worth. There's 8 amendments or proposed amendments on the ballot in November. The first of those is about charitable foundations of professional sports teams. So lots of professional sports teams have an affiliated charitable foundation. The Constitution already authorizes the legislator to permit those teams to, or sorry, not the teams, but their foundations, to conduct charitable raffles at certain home games. Proposition 1 would basically just extend that. It already applies to like the teams in Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NFL, and a lot of other leagues. It does not currently include the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association or the Women's Professional Rodeo Association, and the amendment would just allow those 2 more types of sports or types of charitable foundations to be included in a program that already exists. Fairly uncontroversial. The only major opposition that we're aware of is from people who worry about just the moral turpitude of gambling itself and don't want to see any more gambling. Proposition 2 is about tax increment finance programs, often referred to as TIF. You might know about those. Under a TIF, a city can designate a zone that they consider to be unproductive or undeveloped, and issue bonds to pay for improvements to those areas, and then to pay for the bonds, they commit the stream of property taxes in the TIF zone, right? So basically those property taxes don't go to the regular coffers of the city, they go to pay back the bonds. And essentially Proposition 2 would basically say that counties can do this as well. That one's going to be probably a little more controversial. It would limit the amount of the raised funds that could be used for transportation to 65%. It would say they cannot be used for a toll road ever. Supporters, it pretty much lines up the same way people feel about TIFs in cities, right? Supporters say they're effective tools. They could also, if they work in cities, they can also work in counties. Opponents say, I'm not convinced they work so well in cities already, so we don't want to extend it to counties. And with any sort of tax thing, you'll hear me say this several times today, anytime you alleviate somebody's tax burden or shift it around, it means someone else is paying more, right? That's just always true if you're keeping the overall level of taxes at the same amount. So that is an objection that you'll hear. Proposition 3, there's a couple of amendments proposed amendments. I got to be clear about that. A couple of proposed amendments that are in response to COVID and the actions mostly that the governor took or that cities took. And mostly there are people who think that those actions went too far and they want to restrain them in the future. So Proposition 3 would prohibit the state or any political subdivision of the state, cities, counties, school districts, whoever, from banning or limiting religious services, right? So that's, if you're following the news, that one's pretty clear. The executive order and some of the city ordinances or emergency orders said that certain events had to be restrained or canceled or whatever, and often churches fell into that, and they want to make an exemption for churches. It should be pretty clear how that lines up. Supporters say that it would secure a First Amendment right to worship. Opponents say that if there's a public health crisis, it doesn't really matter what you're doing there. If there's too many people, they shouldn't be there. Proposition 4 is about the requirements or the minimum qualifications for judges and justices. Our judges and justices are either appointed or elected, as the case may be, and some people have raised concerns that the system doesn't allow for a minimally qualified judge, or if anyone can be elected to the post, they could conceivably not have appropriate legal qualifications. And so it basically just toughens the restrictions, or not restrictions, that's the wrong word, the minimal qualifications that a Texas Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals, or the Court of Appeals, they would now have to be a practicing lawyer for at least 10 years. Currently, they only have to be a practicing lawyer. State district judges would have to be practicing law or serving as a judge for 8 years. It can be a combination of lawyer and judge, but it has to be 8 years total, whatever that combination is. Currently, that's only 4. So, again, you could probably guess. Supporters say that this amendment would ensure better judges. Critics say that the voters get to decide, and they're perfectly capable of screening out the bad judges or unqualified judges. Proposition 5 is about the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. That's a commission that oversees judges and gets hears complaints. If you have a complaint that a judge is not ethical or is doing something that violates judicial standards, this would be the commission to where you would report that. What the amendment would do, the proposed amendment, Proposition 5, would do is apply the same standards and the same jurisdiction that this commission has to candidates who are running for judge, and not only the judges themselves. Supporters say that would even the playing field if a challenger runs against an incumbent and the incumbent judge is subject to oversight by this commission, and the opponent, the candidate, is not. Opponents just basically say, well, the current system might be overtaxed, might not. It would have taken, a whole bunch more people to monitor, and maybe that would be more than it's able to do. Proposition 6 is another one that's in response to recent sort of COVID actions. As I'm sure many of you saw, during COVID, there were problems at nursing facilities and similar sort of institutions where people who were living there couldn't see their loved ones, right? Because they had restrictions on social distancing or even coming in the building at all, and so on. And so during some of the more extreme parts of the last year or so, they weren't allowed in the building at all, and so people would go months without seeing their families. And what that would mean is, for all practical purposes, the only people they interacted with were, paid staff who were taking care of them. And so what this amendment would do would say that in any future situation, an emergency order or something like that, people in these sorts of homes would be able to designate one person and say that one person is allowed in, and they get to see me, talk to me, interact with me, come into the building. Supporters think that's a good compromise. You designate one person, that's as opposed to letting everybody in, but it's not allowing these people to sort of languish all alone. It's good to take care of their health to have someone else involved, and quite frankly, when those people die, they won't have to die alone. Opponents say that public health is public health. If the people shouldn't be there, they shouldn't be there. And that we might be trading personal needs for a real public health crisis. Proposition 7 is about property taxes. It's kind of confusing, but once you get it out, it's pretty straightforward. It is currently the case under the Texas Constitution and Texas laws that if a person is over 65 or is disabled, they will get a break in their property taxes, basically, and then it freezes at that point, so it won't go up anymore after that. If that person then dies and that person is married to, sorry, let me back up for a second. The provisions for someone who's married only apply to someone who's over 65 when they die, and not to someone who's disabled. So over 65 and disabled both get the tax breaks while they're alive. If a person who's over 65 dies, then if their surviving spouse is over 55, then they would continue to get that property tax break that's currently in Texas law and authorized by the Constitution. The same provision does not apply to people who are disabled and who die. Their spouses do not currently get the benefit. So in 2019, it's sort of like, ass backwards. In 2019, the legislature passed a law saying that that the disabled people would, or the survivors of disabled people would get the same benefits as the survivors of the people over 65. But that law was unconstitutional because it didn't actually, it's not in the Constitution, right? They tried to pass a constitutional amendment at the same time. For whatever reason, it didn't make it to the legislature. So basically, the amendment proposal that goes with that law is coming 2 years later. So we're basically looking to that proposed amendment would look to sort of retroactively allow a law that was passed 2 years ago to go into effect and be constitutional. That's why you might see the language in the amendment. It actually has a little thing that says, for the last 2 years, for 2020 and 2021, if you're a spouse who fell in that category, you would get a refund of the property taxes that you paid over the last 2 years because the law wasn't actually in effect. Again, you can probably imagine how this plays out. Supporters say that the amendment is necessary just in terms of fairness. If people over 65 spouses get the benefit, and clearly the survivors of people with disabilities should as well, under the principle that they were getting the same benefit while those people were alive. It would validate a law that's already on the books. Opponents think there's too many tax giveaways already, and again, anytime you give a break to somebody, you're making everybody else pay a little more. Finally, Proposition 8. This amendment is about, again, about property taxes and survivors of people who died, but it's about people who died in the military. Currently, spouses of people who died in the military in the line of duty, sorry, the official phrase is killed in action, right? The spouses of those who were killed in action get a break on their property taxes. They're not paying any property taxes at all. and the amendment would just change the language from killed in action to killed or fatally injured in the line of duty. And the idea is there are people who give their lives in the armed services, but are not killed, by an enemy combatant. They might die in an accident. They might have an injury somewhere and die from it a year later. And that wouldn't be technically considered killed in action. And so it really just expands the definition to include people that I think most of us would assume would have fit into that category, but it's not technically worded the right way. So, supporters say that this is just basically clarifying what we meant all along. Very few new people would qualify this who wouldn't have qualified before, so it doesn't cost that much. Opponents, again, say they just don't like tax breaks for anybody. So that is, hopefully I kept under the limit. That is those are the 8 amendments, proposed amendments, propositions. Representative Goodwin at this point has not taken a position on any of them. We were doing special session up until late last night. So that's where we're at right now. But if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to clarify.
Let's save any questions. So we are, hit our time. So let's save any questions for chat. Okay. But that was a really great overview. I really appreciate that. And there's also, I'll keep the meeting open after 1 o'clock so people can also maybe get in touch. I don't know if you're going to be available to stick around, but we can, or we could forward questions if we need to.
I'll see if anything pops up in the chat, and then I'll probably go though. Thank you though. Appreciate it.
Okay, cool. So next we have, we'll have talk about Proposition A. Right now I only have people speaking someone to speak against it. So let me see. I think David Foster or Chrissy O'Brien, one of y'all was going to speak, and I can pull up your thing. And let's say till 12:30, so 8 minutes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. So many familiar faces. So Dave and I are just going to open this up with kind of our opposition, why the organizations we represent are opposed. And then we did want to share the presentation so that you can see exactly what Proposition A is and the impact it will have on our general fund, our city services. So I am with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. As you know, we represent thousands of civilian city employees, librarians, park rangers, public health workers. We do a lot of advocacy work for them, especially around the budget process. We did just wrap up the city budget, and it was tight, due to budget constraints like revenue caps, HB 1900, public revenue constraints we're dealing with from COVID-19. We are struggling to fund positions and services. So we're already working from a reduced workforce without the impact of Prop A. For example, we weren't able to fund position requests from Parks and Recreation for more park rangers and maintenance workers. We could only partially meet their needs this fiscal year. So we stand opposed to Prop A. It's a fiscally irresponsible initiative that will result in deep cuts to departments such as the library, Austin Public Health, Parks and Recreation, and others. The city's chief financial officer did analyze the impact of this ballot initiative. And as you're going to see, should it pass, and as you will see here shortly, the consequences are severe. We're talking about massive layoffs to an already reduced workforce. We're talking about major cuts to services this community depends on every day. And we won't be able to function under this mandate. We will have to hold an election each year to raise taxes just to be able to fund the mandate, and we'll still have to cut services. This is very, very bad. It's why AFSCME is opposed and why the Austin Central Labor Council voted unanimously to oppose Proposition A. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to David before we share the presentation.
Thanks, Christy, and thanks, everybody. It's good to see you, even if only virtually. I'm David Foster. I'm State Director for Clean Water Action here in Texas. And our steering committee, the group that decides, where we're going to take, what kind of positions we're going to take on elections, really wasted no time at all in coming out against this one. because as the PowerPoint stresses, this is really a stealth attack by Republicans under the specious premise of public safety on progressive programs here in Austin, including environmental programs. And I want to talk just very briefly about some of those programs and some of the potential impacts, starting with Austin Energy and Austin Water, our two citizen-owned utilities. So we own those utilities, obviously, and so the revenue that they produce, instead of going into the hands of private stockholders or the pockets of private stockholders, whatever profit they make actually accrues to our benefit. And a big chunk of it is transferred into the city's general fund to help pay for libraries, parks, even police. The amount of money that goes into the general fund from these two utilities, the size of the transfers, is decided by the city council. And there's a formula for how much they expect each utility to transfer. We won't get into the weeds there. But in fiscal year 2021, it amounted to 15% of the proceeds that came into the general fund. It was $117 million from Austin Energy and 50.7 from Austin Water. So if this thing passes, by the way, that's 15%, I think I said that, 15% of that total amount. But if Prop A passes, then the city council is going to have to find the money somewhere to pay for these extra police. And that could mean that they feel compelled to increase the amount that each utility transfers into the general fund. So what could that mean for these utilities? Well, for Austin Energy, it would mean that they'd have less money available for rebates for weatherization, for energy efficiency, for folks who want to update their HVAC systems. They'd have less money for people to help people put solar panels on their roofs, less money for people who want to purchase an electric car or install a power station at their home to refuel the car. For Austin Water, they'd have less money to spend on water efficiency programs, less money to maintain the water quality protection lands over Barton Springs that have helped us so much protect the aquifer in Barton Springs. So I think the impacts to those two enterprise funds, Austin Water and Austin Energy, could be profound. And it could also have impacts on other programs, watershed protection. They'd have less money for flood control projects, less money to buy out homes that are in the floodplain. The Parks Department would have less money for park maintenance, less money for urban trails. So if this thing passes, the programs that we've worked so hard, to put in place here and maintain, supported by the people, could potentially be gutted. So I think it's vital that we come out against this. And I hope that the Austin Environmental Democrats will join Clean Water and Lone Star Sierra Club and other environmental groups, Poder, in coming out against this. And I hope that you all will help us get the word out so that we can beat it. Thank you.
Great. I've been sharing the PowerPoint. I don't know if people could see that. We have a couple more minutes. Did you want to go through the PowerPoint?
Maybe just go to the first slide so you all understand the immediate impact this will have. We'll cut central
Can you
services.
see?
Maybe it's the second. Let's keep going. Here's some. Okay, here you go. Wait, that was it. Sorry. Back one more. So we'll have to immediately hire up to 680 more police officers. This could cost the city $120 million per year, which is money we just don't have. And it also is important for you to note that this requires frontline officers to spend at least 35% of their time not responding to 911 calls.
Okay, and I think we see a question in the chat. We'll just about 3 more minutes. Keep hearing a bipartisan effort. Who is a quote unquote Democratic leader supporting this?
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe her name is Cleo. She's a self-identified Democrat. She's part of their group. I don't know her. I've never seen her at a Democratic function. I would not call this a bipartisan effort, but
no,
go ahead, David.
Yeah, she's window dressing. I actually canvassed her a couple years ago. She's a newcomer, relatively speaking, to the city, and she lives in the Barton Skyway neighborhood. Is that what it's called? Cupid Lane area. And she's all in a tizzy over homeless camps down in the Greenbelt. And I think that's what lit a fire under her and decided to move her in this direction. She was a part of that last effort to roll back what the council did for people who are experiencing homelessness. And she's, I think she's just a little out there, honestly. So But I think it's window dressing. It's not really, it's a Republican effort, no question about it.
Okay.
Can you go, is it the next slide, I think, that talks about the impact to the departments? Well, this is where we're talking about layoffs. So these are civilian layoffs that are not protected by contract or collective bargaining agreements. There's another slide that talks about the cuts to the department. Here we go, right here. This kind of puts it in perspective for you all, how serious this is and the very devastating impact it will have to our services. So we definitely hope you'll join us in opposing and join our coalition, help us get the word out to your networks so that we can beat this in November, because it will, it will take getting people to understand how serious this is. It's not about public safety. It's not about whether or not we should be hiring police officers. It's about who's going to suffer, what's going to happen to our budget, how we will be able to function should this pass.
May I have a quick question? Will you
Yeah.
be able to send this to us of our
Yes.
work so that we can send it to other people or people in Austin? I would love to do that. Thank you.
I'm posting all the meeting documents in a Google Drive that we'll post the link again, but we'll also send that out in an email. But everything everyone's sharing is part of this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I may, as I talk to different people and as I push back on Matt directly on this, he keeps saying, no, this is a bipartisan effort. And that is out there among the different next door chat groups and other chats that it is bipartisan. That's what they're really pushing. We have to make it very clear that this is not bipartisan because you have one Democrat supporting it, that the Democratic groups say no. And we really got to push that message, because I'm hearing that, well, maybe we should think about it because it is bipartisan. Blah, blah,
There's
blah,
significant opposition among Republicans as well. This really is a fringe. And it is two people. It's Cleo and Makowiak. I don't know anybody else who's put their name out there. Nobody else certainly speaks to it. But quietly out there are significant members of significant numbers of Republicans who also will be against Prop A. So I don't think they are. So it'll be really important for all of us to get out and vote.
Okay.
So I could just add a couple of.
Can we? Oh, Ted. Yeah, Ted. Yeah, can you do 1 minute, because we need to keep going.
Yes, or less than 1 minute. But I do just also want to share that among other supporters include the Austin Outside Coalition, former city manager Jesus Garza, that is supporters of the no way on Prop A position against Prop A, and many others. So I couldn't agree more with all the speakers who've spoken against Prop A. As Democrats, we should come out against this too.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, and we will move on to our discussion on Proposition B. And Leslie Poole wants to talk about that, and I'll have some PDFs for her. And take it away, Leslie, and let me know which item you would like me to.
That's great.
Can everyone see my shared screen? I'm presenting.
Yes, I can see it there. Thanks, everybody. Prop B is where the city council is authorized to convey or lease about 9 acres of parkland that's currently used as a central maintenance complex. That's at 2525 South Lakeshore Boulevard. Will you put up the other map for me there, Timothy? I wanted to make the point here that this is on the south side. This rectangle is the property. It's on the south side of Lakeshore Boulevard. It does not have access directly onto the river at any point. It is also, even though it is owned by the city and in the parks inventory, it is not publicly accessible parkland at this point. It is a maintenance yard. The folks that are interested in acquiring this, which is what this Proposition B is all about, is Oracle. Oracle, as you know, owns the property just on the other side of the road. They would like to expand onto that site. And in exchange for this, which is they authorized to convey or lease the approximately 9 acres there, the city of Austin would receive funds to, and then scoop that map up a little bit to show the smaller purple rectangle that's on the north side of the river. That's Fiesta Gardens. There is a maintenance yard there that would be closed and moved further to the east on other city-owned property. And this property here, which is in Fiesta Gardens, would return or become publicly accessible and an expansion of city parkland there. And then if you will bring up that other map, the big get for the city of Austin is in fact a piece of property close to 50 acres. It's a little bit more than 48 acres that this Parks Department has had its eye on for a long time. This is the, it's a racetrack. It's called, I think, Austin Motorways, and I've got Littlefield on here, and I think Butts is on here, and some other folks can correct the name of that particular racetrack, but that would transfer to city ownership. And as you can see, it is surrounded currently by city parkland and Trevino Park off to the east. So this is like the whole of the donut. And we would be filling this in, and that would all be publicly accessible parkland. We could do a lot on that parkland. I'll note it's a 5-to-1 transfer, 50 acres for 10. The amount of money is about 45 million, about 15 million to erect a maintenance facility elsewhere. And that's the piece that's moved off the 9 acres next to Oracle. And then the purchase that is involved and the transfer of this land to city inventory. This will be a big release valve for a lot of us in Austin who recognize that we are loving our parks to death, in particular Zilker Park. It's really important for us to have additional parkland publicly accessible that is open for the kinds of events that we only are having now on some of the west side parks. We could do triathlons here because there is river access. There would be good running track. We could have concerts here. And we could maybe give Zilker Park a little bit of a breather, and also bring this kind of economic development and access to our neighbors on the east side of town. So I'm very much in support of Prop B. I would love to see Austin Environmental Dems join the campaign in support. We've got one that we're against, Prop A, and one that we are very much for, which is Prop B from the city on the November ballot. Thanks, y'all. I'll take any questions, and I got some of the experts also who are lined up here who can also field some particulars.
Anyone want to ask a question or make a brief comment?
Yeah, just a question on, and I agree, we are loving Zilker to death. Would this give us enough park space to be able to move ACL, the festival there?
That's a great question.
And how would the neighbors react to it? Because I can't quite see where this is. I see it's on the Colorado River. I can't quite see where though.
What's the name of that motorway? Mark, can you tell me the name of the, because then
Yeah,
you can go on your Google.
Sure, it's called Driveway Austin.
That's it. And then you can see like the airport is down there. There it is right there.
Okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah. And that's
Roy, there's one road that gets down there. It's called Delwa Road. It's a rural road. They are everyone we've talked to so far is excited about this. This is obviously no cars would be allowed if this was something that was owned by the city of Austin and Parks and Recreation Department. But right now it's used as a racetrack for folks to use it. So the neighbors would be really excited not to hear the loud noise from the racetrack or the people who drive quickly up and down Delwa Road to get to it. Urban Roots is not adjacent, but one property away being adjacent. They're excited about this. They would love to be able to use some of this area as an overflow parking for some of their school bus activities when they come. They would love to talk to PART about doing another farmer's market on weekends, stuff like that. And then there is another neighborhood that's somewhat adjacent to this. They're also excited about it. And more importantly, I think you can see there, it's the Knollwood neighborhood right there. They have there is a small strip of land that is in between the Colorado River and Knollwood. That has a trail on it that would be used to connect Trevino, Driveway Austin, and then the Bolm Road District Park. So everyone's excited.
Right, right. Yeah, I've walked that out there. Yeah, it's not real accessible. So it's kind of hard to see it as a pop-off valve for Zilker unless we make a real, I wouldn't see ACL working out there, but if we can.
I don't think ACL would work unless there was major infrastructure improvements to Delaware Road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think that for
Agree
other
with
kind
that.
of events, obviously smaller concerts than that, but as Leslie was talking about, marathons, 5Ks, 10Ks, triathlons, bike races. There's already the largest weekly bike race in Texas. Is those guys use this track one day a week, and they're always worried that they're going to lose their ability to do that, and they were able to renegotiate that with more certainty, probably with PART. But
And we are also filling in a really key piece of property that the city has not had ownership of, and it completes that park. You can see if that all were green, where it's white and the darker green, if that were all the same color, that's a magnificent addition to our parks lineup.
Okay, we've got about 2 more minutes. David King, I saw your hand raised. And then we had a question in the chat. So just one or.
Yeah,
1
I would
minute
just
pitch.
like to add on to Leslie's very good description that Trevino Park gets completed by this 50-acre addition. And it's quite clear on the map there that Walnut Creek goes through Trevino Park, but it would be much more protected, and the trail along it would be much more accessible and improved by this land swap. It's not often that this occurs, that a private sector interest, Oracle in this case, its interests, or it's made its interests completely align with the public interest. That is, we're getting 5 acres for every one. That one that the Parks Department currently owns isn't parkland, it's a maintenance facility. That maintenance facility will be recreated with Oracle's money rather than our tax money. What's not to like? So I strongly support Prop B.
Okay, David, did you have a quick question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Timothy. I appreciate it. And thank you for organizing this. The officers for organizing this. I appreciate this. This is a pretty complex deal here. It's got lots of pieces to it. And, I've heard the positive comments and how, we can do these things, we can move events, we can, and I'm just very concerned about, this complicated plan. If we pass this, and then all of these things we say, oh, it could be this, it could be that, and then it doesn't happen because there's no plan that says that the public has been through that says, yes, this is exactly what we're going to do. This domino falls and we're going to do this next thing. So, I'm not speaking against this. What I'm saying is, I think we have to be very careful about setting up expectations from the public to say, we could do all of these things. I think this is a good thing. And so I'm not speaking against this. I just think we have to be very careful about setting up expectations about what we're going to do with all this property without having first gone through a public process for the neighborhoods that are going to be affected by this, for the events that are going to be affected by this. And the other thing is, when we say this is in the public interest, well, I have to get on the record. Oracle has done some things that are not in our public interest. They've displaced people on Riverside Drive, as you all know, hundreds of low-income families, and they didn't do anything about that. So I'm not sure that they are really, that we should be doing business with so-called public entity or a private entity that's doing public good here. I think we have to be very careful about that. So I'd like to learn more about what's Oracle's, angle on
So
this.
we're running out of time. I did want to, since Jeb Boyd posted a question that I wanted to give him a chance to ask. Would this purchase and in holding within existing parkland as the map suggests?
Yes, it does. And it would follow all of our very transparent stakeholder processes. To David's question, if the voters approve, the council would in fact have a public and transparent process to review and approve any of the bids that might come in, and for the programming of this site. It is a big win for the city in all aspects, in my opinion.
Yes, and Councilmember Poole, I am going to support this and I'm going to advocate for it. I don't want my comments to make it like I'm not for this. I just want to be careful about how we sell this to the public before we've gone through a transparent process as you've described. And I believe what you say will happen if this were to pass. So thank you very much.
Always
Okay.
need to scope public expectations. Absolutely agree. Thanks for that, David.
All right, thanks y'all. Okay, so if y'all have any
Thanks,
more thoughts or
everybody.
comments, please feel free to post in chat. Next, we're going to talk about the I-35 expansion. I believe Hayden Walker should be on with Reconnect Austin to talk about it. And if you have anything for it to present, I'm happy to share the screen, or you can also share, I have it enabled for participants, but take it away.
Okay, thanks.
We'll have about 5-10 minutes to talk about this.
Great. Can you guys hear me okay? I apologize. My computer crashed, and so I am commandeered my husband's laptop, which is why my name's just David Walker, but we're making it work. It's nice to see so many friends here today. Thanks for having me. I do have a few slides that I can show to kind of help everybody understand what's going on. I think the important pieces of this are that TxDOT is doing round 3 of public engagement on scoping, which is how they decide, which alternative to carry forward. So from this point forward, they're hoping to just review and design basically 2 alternatives. There are 3 community alternatives: Reconnect Austin, which I represent, Rethink 35, which is actually the proposal to completely remove I-35 and replace it with a boulevard between 290 and 71. And then the Urban Land Institute Downtown Austin Alliance proposal, that's a series of caps and stitches. And so what TxDOT has done is they have basically, sorry, trying to multitask here. They have eliminated the 3 community alternatives. They hired the Texas Transportation Institute to do a study that said, yeah, there's some good ideas in those community alternatives, but none of them are should move forward in the process. And so what that means is that the community alternatives have been eliminated. TxDOT had 4. They're required to do no build by the federal process. And then they had 3 in addition to that. They eliminated their own alternative number 1. So 2 and 3 are the only 2 that will move forward. They're almost identical. In fact, TxDOT will tell you that they don't feel like they need to study air quality on this project because their 2 alternatives are almost identical and the air quality would not be significantly different. So I wanted to show you just a couple of things. This is Reconnect Austin, where we propose to lower the main lanes, cover it with a continuous boulevard, and then build tax base on what are now frontage roads. We calculated that between Lady Bird Lake and Airport, there's 136 acres, which is quite a lot in the fastest growing city in the country, of TxDOT right-of-way that could be used in different ways. And then this is one of TxDOT's renderings of the 20-lane highway that they want to build. So I know you can't really see these, but the point here is that their schematics, which they released on August 10th, are virtually identical, except in the way that Airport Boulevard crosses I-35 and the way that Woodland Avenue crosses I-35. And this is a typical cross-section. It would go from a typical cross-section of 12 lanes to a typical cross-section of 20 lanes, in some cases 21. And then in yellow, you see some of the land that TxDOT will bulldoze. They're planning eminent domain for 142 parcels in central Austin. It's over, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It's 32 parcels in central Austin. It's over 140 local businesses and homes that would be eminent domained and bulldozed. And then when they become highway, they would be permanently off of the tax rolls. So I also wanted to point out a couple of things just really quickly. On the left, you see this design configuration that TxDOT came up with between Manor and Dean Keaton, where they've actually stayed within their 200-foot right-of-way, showing that they actually have the ability to do that. But this is the only place where they're actually proposing to build within 200 feet. Everything else is wider. And then you can see it in MLK, places like this that are significantly wider. I'm going to stop sharing there. Some of this other stuff is probably not as valuable. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that, you know, TxDOT has never done, and we confirmed with a public information request, they've never done a study of the increased vehicle miles traveled with this project. They've never studied air quality. They have no air quality monitor next to that highway. They don't know what the air quality is right now. And they've been pretty resistant to adding that as a criteria in their decision matrix, although the city of Austin did push on them very hard, as did many advocates, and we did get that added. Leslie asked a great question in council work session earlier this week about SH 130, which most of us remember was built as a bypass to I-35. TxDOT continues to ignore any questions about SH 130 and using that as a bypass. It's not even included as an alternative to be studied in the environmental review, and we believe that it should be. And then I can drop a link in the chat for an Action Network letter that if you want to sign as an individual and you want to share, it basically functions as a petition, which I realize is kind of a blunt tool. And I apologize to the elected officials here who are going to receive a bunch of them in their inboxes, but it is one way to try to get TxDOT's attention. And I would encourage you as an organization to write a letter to TxDOT. They seem to pay more attention to those letters. They're pretty dismissive of any petitions, unfortunately. So with that, I will stop babbling and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, we have like 2 minutes if anyone has any questions, and then we need to move on. So what's the best way, I guess, for individuals to get involved in this process? Do you have an idea of the timeline?
Yeah, thanks, Timothy. I should have said that. Public engagement closes September 24th. So it's important that people comment before the 24th so that the comments are part of the public record. I can drop the website into the chat as well as that Action Network letter, or if you end earlier, I can just send them to Timothy for distribution.
Yeah. So yeah, please do both. We'll keep the meeting open after 1. So yeah, send those in. I've got a drive that I'll post to, but yeah, we'll also send out an email with all the documents for this meeting. So please send that here. Yeah, this is important, and I know everything has lots of things going on. So this one's really important, and as well as all the other items we talked about today. So with that, I'm going to give it to Jessica Cohen. We have actually one more item, just announcing before I give it to Jessica. We were asked to sponsor Texas Campaign for the Environment is having their annual trash makeover challenge. It's going to be on Zoom, and we were asked to sponsor it, which is I think a $300 donation. So we'll be voting on that, and there's some information about that. There's a letter in the documents. I'll post that. But I will also now hand it over to Jessica to talk about voting. She set that up.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many faces back to soon. Soon we'll be meeting back in person. So just real quick, we're using the same voting platform we used last time, which is called Helios. At 1 o'clock, in about 5 minutes here, you're going to receive an email from the Helios voting system with your login information. It is anonymous. Options are for, against, and neutral, neutral being no recommendation either way. All 10 propositions are on the ballot. If you're a member and you don't receive an email, text me or email me and we'll get you set up within like 5 or 10 minutes. It'll be really quickly, but so far we've got everyone who was eligible to vote in May is on the list, and then a few extras who just recently joined, but that should cover pretty much everything. It's a simple process. And again, it's info@austinenvirodems.org. I posted it over here in the chat. If you have any questions, give me an email.
Okay. David, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, are we voting on a resolution regarding the I-35?
We are not. We didn't have something in time. We could come up with that.
I think
don't
we
have any
should,
voting right
definitely.
Okay.
Put that up next time.
Or
Yes.
I could hold the votes off. We
Well,
could draft some language and send it out at like 2 o'clock if you wanted.
Well, we would have to do special process for last minute endorsements. So we could send something out like next week. But I would rather, because we've already announced all the endorsements or everything else, we should get that done. And then we can work on something for the I-35.
Well, that'll work for sure.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I think that's all our action items. Let me give it, if anyone has an announcement, 1 minute announcement, please post, or please, if anyone has an announcement, please raise your hand, and I'll recognize people for outside announcements. David, did you have something, or is just your hand still raised?
No.
Okay. Don't see any outside announcements. So if there are any candidates that want to have 30 seconds, please, I'll give you candidates 30 seconds. And I see Leslie Boykin just raised her hand. So you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Timothy and Environmental Democrats. It's great to be here. I'm Leslie Boykin. I've been a defense attorney here in Travis County and surrounding counties for almost 17 years. And now I am running to be the next judge of County Court at Law number 6. I'd love to tell you more about my campaign, but with just 30 seconds, I would just refer you to the chat. I'll put my website, which also has an email if you'd like to email me there. And this is very interesting. I'm originally from East Texas, so I care a lot about the environment. Thanks for letting us talk.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Okay, and then Lori Iserloh.
Hi, everybody. Lori Iserloh here. I'm running for the 455th Civil District Court. It's a new civil court here in Austin. I'm just real quickly, we've got a great opportunity for an environmental perspective, and that is that we can start using all of these great technologies that we've become more familiar with during the pandemic, so that it costs litigants less to get to court, and also lessens the environmental impact of people having to actually drive their cars to get to the courtroom. New court, new opportunity, new day. Lori Iserloh for the new civil district court, not a criminal court. And I hope to get y'all's support whenever we can ever get this election to happen, hopefully in March. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Next, we have Denise Hernandez.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Denise Hernandez, and I'm running to be the first openly gay Latina judge to serve County Court at Law number 6. I grew up the daughter of migrant workers in a very low-income community, but I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm the first lawyer in my family. And through my lived experience, I've been deeply inspired to dedicate my career to public service and community equity. So I'm running for County Court at Law number 6 to ensure that our judicial system is truly inclusive, equitable, and culturally competent. I ask you to learn more about me by visiting votedeniseforjudge.com. And thank you again for the time.
All right, thank you, Denise. Next, we have Chantal Eldridge.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. I've met most of you before in person, but it's been a long time. My name is Chantal Eldridge. I'm currently your judge for the 331st District Court. That's a felony criminal court here in Travis County. I am running for re-election. We've had a great first term, and I would love to tell you all the things that we've been able to accomplish. both in the first year prior to the pandemic and then of course post-pandemic. We've learned a lot about the technology that we've moved towards. So hopefully we'll end up with a hybrid technology system once we're back in person and we return to a new normal. Anyway, I would love to speak to each of you in person. I look forward to seeing you the next time that we actually get together. And I hope that you will visit my site at reelectchantel.com. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Nice to see you all again.
Okay, and next we have Beth. Thank you, Chantal. Next we have Beth Pian. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. So
that's okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Beth Pion, and I've been a lawyer for almost 30 years. I've been a public servant for the entirety of my career, and I want to be your next Democratic Justice on the Third Court of Appeals. In my 30-year career, I've worked not only at legal aid, but at the City of Austin, and I've been a litigator at the Travis County District Attorney's Office. I've been in almost every division of the District Attorney's Office, starting in restorative justice areas. I've gone on to be in the Family Justice Division, prosecuting both criminal child abuse, civil child abuse, family violence, sexual assaults, and I'm currently the lead of the diversion area, trying to divert people from the criminal justice system, so people who commit low-level nonviolent offenses have an opportunity to get their record cleared. I have a wide breadth of experience. I've been an active Democrat, a precinct chair for many years, president of the Capillary Democratic Women, and was recently honored by the Travis County Women Lawyers Association. I'm currently working on my website, and I hope to get that out to you all soon. I know many of you, it's really nice to see you again and back to going to things and seeing people. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Beth. Next, we have Craig Moore.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craig Moore, and I'm running for the 403rd District Court. Our good friend Brenda Kennedy has decided to retire after many years of service, and I'm honored to run for that seat. I've practiced criminal law for over 14 years. I've been a lawyer since 2004, graduated from University of Texas at Austin. As a judge, I definitely want to do everything that I can to protect the rights of the accused, to expand our diversion programs, and to make sure that everyone that comes into the courtroom is treated fairly, with respect, and with equality. Right now, I am teaching criminal law at St. Ed's, and I'm working on my doctoral degree in criminal justice. And so I look forward to visiting with all of you in person. I put my website in the chat. Is www.craigforjudge.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Craig. Next, we have Commissioner Ann.
Hey, everybody. Wanted to say hello. Yesterday, I had my first opportunity to mark up the Travis County budget. And I want you to know we were able to add staff to the environmental office led by John White to really help bring to fruition the many policies that the court has passed to address climate change and to really begin interfacing with the community around those changes. Also to help us be better prepared for storm, fire, and flooding. So it's good to see everybody on this. I'm glad we're all alive and safe. And thanks for what you do. And thanks for letting me be your Travis County Commissioner.
Thank you, Ann. Next, we have Maggie Ellis.
Hi, Austin and Envirodems. It's so nice to see all of you, although I wish we were all sitting at El Mercado sharing enchiladas. I am running for the Third Court of Appeals. This seat hears all of the civil and criminal appeals for 24 counties and all of the administrative law appeals for all over the state of Texas. It's a very unique court. I have represented individuals and the state in cases and criminal, civil cases in 5 counties. I was also appointed as an administrative law judge, and I have 5 years of regulatory experience with SOLA. So I'm very uniquely qualified for this position. I also survived a childhood of abuse, neglect, educational deprivation to be the only one of my 8 siblings to graduate from college. I was a teacher and foster mom, and then went to law school to advocate for individuals and families. I would love to talk with you. And of course, look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, thank you. And next we have, thank you, Maggie, sorry. We have Mary Ann Espiritu. Sorry.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marianne Espiritu, and I'm running for Travis County Court at Law number 5. That is currently Judge Hohengarten's bench, but she is retiring after her term. This bench hears criminal misdemeanors. So that would be a misdemeanor like illegal dumping, and illegal dumping 500 to 1,000 pounds. And the punishment range that's a Class A misdemeanor, and the punishment range is up to a year in jail and up to a $4,000 fine. But I would love your input on what you would think is an equitable restitution for illegal dumping. So I look forward to speaking with you. I've been a lawyer for 20 years. I've been a criminal defense attorney for 14 years, and I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marianne. And we have Daniela DeSeta Little next.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniela Lytle, and I'm running for 261st District Court. Currently, Judge Laura Livingston is in that seat, and she's retiring. I'm a multilingual trial lawyer and Army veteran where I served as an infantry medic. I'm a first-generation American, daughter to South American immigrants. I was the first in my family to attend college, and my inspiration was to help at-risk communities like my own. I have specialized in that specifically in family law litigation and immigration for over 12 years. And I welcome you to learn more about me at danielaforjudge.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Daniela. And that's all the people I have with hands raised. Did anyone, other candidates, anyone not raise their hand? Okay, and with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone for attending. This is a lot of stuff to talk about. Appreciate everyone's input, a lot of good information. We will post a recording, and I'll post all the documents sent, links and everything. So look for that, look for your ballots. And with that, we are adjourned. And I'm open breakout rooms if anyone wants to like chat after the meeting, but formal end of the meeting.
I'd like to briefly thank Maggie Ellis, like a little bit sarcastically, because I'm literally going to have to go drive down to El Mercado and get takeout now, because that just sounded like something I really, really want.
You're very welcome, Jess. I'll look forward to when we can